You're welcome to Ben Television. My name is Tunde Alabi. It's a pleasure having you on this very special program that has been dedicated to giving to you basic information you need to know about Nigeria. Most importantly, update you about information on the country. We've got a very special guest all the way from Nigeria in the studio today. And our guest in the studio is not any other person than the Honorable Minister for Information and Communication in Nigeria. Labaran Maku is here in the studio and he'll be giving us basic information we need to know, current issues, updates that we need to know, and he will be enlightening us about things that are probably unknown to us as diasporans outside the shores of Nigeria. Joining me in the studio are my colleagues in the media. Of course, obviously, it's a media. Parley is a media chart, so I've got my colleagues in the studio. First, I have the publisher of one of the most read magazines here in the UK, The African Voice. I'm talking about Mike Abiola. You're welcome to this media parley with the Honorable Minister.
The Honorable Minister.
And also joining us in the studio is the Guardian correspondent in Europe here. That's Tunde Oyedoyin. You're welcome to this special program with the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, I welcome you to this very, very special program. We'll be taking a look at Nigeria. It's your job.
And others here. Thank you for this privilege and opportunity to speak to our people here in Europe.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, let me first allow the publisher of African Voice to meet with the Honorable Minister through the first show.
Honorable Minister, it's good to see you so relaxed. Is it the fact that you are in the UK, or this is how the job is so relaxed for you, in spite of the news we hear about Nigeria?
Well, let me say this, that being confident about what you are doing, I think, gives you that aura of stability. We are not panicking in Nigeria, so it's nothing for us in Nigeria to panic about. Nigeria has challenges, and the leadership of President Goodluck Jonathan and all of us working with him are working hard to fix those problems. So as we speak for the country and work and lead it, we expect that when citizens see us, they should know that we are confident, we are stable, we are focused, we are not panicking about anything. And that's to tell you that we are sure, in spite of all the things we hear, that Nigeria is headed in the right direction, and we're working hard to ensure that we lift our country from all the anxieties that citizens feel from some stories from Nigeria.
Honorable Minister, Nigeria has lots of talents in the diaspora. What's your government's policy towards the diaspora?
First of all, particularly the leadership of President Goodluck Jonathan, has been one government that has deliberately tried to link up with the diaspora community of Nigerians to tap on their talents, to draw on their suggestions. Before the 2011 elections, the president formally engaged the diaspora. We met with them abroad and at home. A number of the organizations spread across Europe, Asia, went home and discussed with the president. I was one of those that received them. And we made it very clear that we know the talents that our people abroad have. We know their passion for the country. We also know their contribution to the economy of Nigeria. We have a lot of people who take money home on a yearly basis and who are investing in businesses at home and who also support their families at home. But over and above that, we know that Nigerians abroad, many of them are highly successful people, highly educated people. And so what we have done is to continue to open channels of communication with the diaspora. I have been here in England. This is the second time I'm coming. The last time I was here was a forum that Ben Television and others put together to discuss with the diaspora community here. Over the weekend, I also came here to discuss with Nigerian students across England who came to King's College to ask questions about their future, about the future of the country, and what role we expect them to play. 3 months ago, I was in Columbus, the United States, invited by the Nigerian diaspora community, and we had very useful discussions with them. What I can say is, like China, the Chinese reforms were propelled by the Chinese in diaspora, who went home with new knowledge, technology, opportunities, and investment. Nigerians abroad also today face the opportunity to come home and participate in what is happening. The point I made at King's College with students was, yes, there are challenges, but that's also the opportunity. Because every generation that faces challenges also has the opportunity to be great, to make historical contributions. And I think the challenges in infrastructure, the gaps in infrastructure, development reforms that are taking place in Nigeria today offer our people the opportunity to come home and participate. And we're seeing a lot of people come to Nigeria to invest now. Last year, we led in the whole continent in terms of foreign direct investment into the Nigerian economy. We have been doing so for quite some years now. And from all the international organizations, World Bank, everybody believes that between 2025, Nigeria will be the destination for investments in Africa. And this means that the rest of the world is beginning to see those challenges in Nigeria as opportunities. And so our citizens should not be left behind. And that's why we're here constantly to speak with them, to talk to you, and see what you can do for us back home in Nigeria.
Yes, Honorable Minister, I would like to, before I go to Tunde, I would like to pick on the first questions Mike started with and your response on the issue of panic. Would the people of Plateau State and the entire people in the northern part of Nigeria say that there's no need for panic? Would they be able to say that, just as you have said now? Is it right to say the atmosphere in Nigeria is not that of panic and fear?
Yeah, I mean, we have challenges, as you do know, and unfortunately, bad news makes more news than good news, especially if you're living abroad. It's all in the human psychology that what is negative is often more emphasized than what is positive. The reality is we have challenges with security in some states in northern Nigeria. And Plateau State happens to be one of them. The other states are Borno, Yobe, occasionally Bauchi. We also have had Kano in recent times and Kaduna. The rest of northern Nigeria is relatively peaceful. Yes, we've had some incidents in Madala, in Suleja, in Niger State, and some at Okene in Kogi State, in north central Nigeria, and the attacks that took place in Abuja. But generally speaking, the rest, even in northern Nigeria, the rest of the north is peaceful. If you go to Jigawa, if you go to Kebbi, if you go to Katsina, these are hardcore states in northwest of Nigeria. Relatively, there is peace. If you go to Taraba, if you go to most of Adamawa, and essentially other states, even in the northeast, Gombe, yes, occasionally, but you see there is some stability in Gombe. So even in the north, it is not everywhere that we have had crisis. Benue, Nasarawa, these are all states in northern Nigeria. So the crisis we have had, yes, are in some parts of the north. It's not even all of northern Nigeria that is involved in it. I agree that innocent citizens can get caught up. They don't necessarily have to come from those spots. But you were here in England. You have IRA bombing London for over 30 years. And there was no panic in England. There were terror attacks in London, in the streets of London here. People were underground stations, there were bomb explosions in most of England by the IRA. But the English government and its people were not panicking. Rather, they had a lot of confidence because they believe in the future of their country, and they knew that these two would be one of those stories, so long as they remain together and they remain focused. So the situation in Nigeria does not call for panic. Pakistan has witnessed more crises than we have had, for example, in the last 10 years. We've not had the kind of explosions, the killings in Pakistan. Iraq, even Iraq that has been in a state of war, they are not panicking. They believe in their country and they know that occasionally certain things happen you don't like. But in the case of Nigeria, we've been working hard to bring this, to defeat the forces of violence. And we are working hard on that. The government is confident. We're investing a lot in the security, in deployment, in intelligence. And if you look at the situation in Nigeria, we have, in terms of practical management of the crisis, including the arrest of suspects and so on, we've done appreciably well. But so long as you have explosion once in a while, it will continue to distract the public, and it will continue to make news around the world. But let me say that in the midst of this, a lot of progress and development is also taking place in Nigeria. In the last 2 years, in spite of this violence, Nigeria had the highest GDP growth in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, in the whole continent, 7.6%. The first half of this year, we grew about 6.6% GDP. And as I've said, last year, 2011, we had the highest foreign direct investment going to Africa, came to Nigeria. And even as I'm speaking to you, recently, for example, we opened up the power sector after the reforms, and we want to privatize power generation and transmission. And so we put up the bid globally, and we have 79 companies around the world who have come into Nigeria to invest in our power sector. There is a rush in telecoms. Now we're opening up agriculture, we're opening up different other sectors that were closed under the bad policies of military rule. So what I would like to tell our people is that the president and all of us working with him and all Nigerians, we know our responsibility to our people. We know that we face these security challenges which are temporary, and we also know that these challenges do not mean that there is a war in Nigeria. There is no war in Nigeria. Preponderant majority of communities in Nigeria are peaceful, and the country is looking at it globally, is largely peaceful, and that is why foreigners, everybody is still going to Nigeria to do business. So, yes, when you are out here and you hear of an explosion and an attack, which is often what the media will report globally, not the progress in telecoms, not the progress in agriculture, not the progress in transportation, not the direct foreign investment that is coming into the economy, not economic growth, not the large market that is very attractive to the rest of the world. Those are not things that make news every day. But for you as citizens, you must know that, yes, this violence that has been taking place in some parts of the north is worrisome, but that government is confident. The people of Nigeria are confident in the future of the country, and that violence will be defeated. And meanwhile, in the midst of all this, a lot of progress. The positives far outweigh the negatives that you hear out here.
Honourable Minister, sir, if I do permit it to continue, we will not have to go round. Okay, let me allow Tunde to take his questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tunde, I know there are people already trying to get in touch with us. Just give us a few more minutes and allow the Honourable Minister to give us more information that you'll be able to pick on in the course of the program. Just a few more minutes, I'll be able to take your calls. Just a few more minutes. Thank you. Today.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for you mentioned. The progress that has been made, and that foreign direct investments coming in, which are quite good news. Just of recent, the National Office of Statistics said, over 60% of Nigerians are living in poverty. Does it mean, the growth in the GDP and all this progress, foreign direct investment coming into Nigeria, does it mean they are not trickling down to the general populace?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, we can't say that there is no poverty in Nigeria. That would be not telling the truth. There is poverty in Nigeria, and there is a level of unemployment that we in government believe we must bring down. And this has been accumulated problem that have arisen for decades of bad economic policies that made the nation look like only government could do business. And all the sectors of the economy that ought to expand and give opportunities to citizens were closed down, were controlled by government bureaucracy. And so downstream sector of the economy, for example, nobody could invest in any refinery, nobody could invest in any petrochemicals, and we kept exporting crude oil that is not making impact in terms of generating the employment, because without the policies that would have made Nigeria the hub of petrochemical industries, which is what we ought to be now after exporting crude oil for 54 years. We knew that there would not be employment in the Niger Delta because the policies were wrong. In the telecom sector, for example, without the reforms of the last 10 years, we had a situation where we had 450 analog lines controlled by government. The economy did not open. In the cement sector, the same thing. Now, for us to arrive at a level where these policies will generate the kind of economic activities, you need reforms. These reforms can't create sufficient jobs for Nigerians at the beginning. So it will take quite a while. But I believe that we are directly going towards a situation whereby the major sectors of the economy, agriculture, infrastructure, social services, industry, telecom, power sector, there will now be agencies generating jobs and opportunities. And that is why the reforms of the president, the transformation agenda, are targeted at opening up those sectors that couldn't grow because the policies were wrong. So in the meantime, we don't expect that we'll be able to confront the question of poverty and unemployment within the next 4 years alone. But even at that, if you look at the Nigerian society today, opportunities are opening up. If you look at cement, for example, we're now the biggest cement producer in the continent, just from the policy of reforms and opening up. Private companies alone are employing more people in cement today than government companies, cement companies were ever doing. If you come to telecoms, we have from 450 analog lines to 100 million mobile lines, and it's the fastest telecom growing market in the continent. So you can imagine the number of young people today that have the opportunities to work in that sector. Now we're getting power, and I've just told you. In the next 2 to 3, 4 years, I expect a lot of expansion in opportunities for work in the power sector. But at the level of government, we are also confronting poverty through direct interventions. You know, for example, we are not waiting for all these reforms to work before we can confront it. For example, we have an aggressive public works program where we're employing between and about 2 years ago in the region of 1 million people. In agriculture, we are targeting that if our reforms and the expansion and the credit facilities we have made available to people, about 450 billion naira. If we work at it aggressively, and we see the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Deshona, has been doing quite some revolutionary work in the area of agriculture, we expect between 2015 to have about 3 to 4 million new jobs in agriculture, in new rice mills, in new irrigation projects that were opening up in parts of the country, which will be made available to private farmers who themselves will employ other people. We also have a win program that is employing youth, giving them credit to set up businesses and employ other people. And all the other channels of government are still employing security services, civil service, and so on. But those jobs aren't yet enough. And we believe that as the economy expands as a result of these reforms, gradually, majority of young Nigerians wouldn't be looking to government for employment, because in England, tell me how many people are working in government compared to those who work in the private sector. But in Nigeria, virtually everybody leaving school is eyeing a government job because the economy was not expanding. So I believe that as the president continues to work on his reforms, and as the rest of the world answers the way we're seeing now, showing interest in coming to invest, and Nigerians at home and abroad also take interest in investing, the story will change.
Honorable Minister, let me take it back a bit to security issue in Nigeria. A kind of a crisis tends to be brewing between the northern part and the southern part. As the southern part of Nigeria, the government in the southern part calling for state police, and northern part saying no to state police. What is the situation with the federal government in terms of state police?
Always like this, north versus south. And this is the problem with the country. Northern part, southern part, Yoruba part, Igbo part, Hausa part. You know, this kind of psychology must give way to a new discussion. You know, the question about state police, there is no unanimity neither in the south nor in the north about it. Babangida, for example, supported state police. Is not from southern part. He's a northerner. A former leader of Nigeria, former military president of Nigeria, issued a statement that he supported state police. He's not a southerner. He's from the northern part. We had Mark Okero and other people who were former police chiefs from the south saying the place is not yet mature for state police. So the discussion in Nigeria does not follow ethnic or regional lines. I think that we should look at it in terms of what policy will work in view of the reality on the ground. In principle, nobody who has raised caution about state police is opposed to it in principle. But people are talking about the level of political maturity now and the tendencies that we see on the ground. And I remember the president one day, I think in one interview by the journalist, talking about, when do you think it would be right for us to have a state police? And he said, well, initially Nigeria has state police in the Fourth Republic. we had Dogari in the north, we had the regional police in all over the country. But we saw in that republic that they were used for political ends. They were used to suppress local opposition against the regional parties of that time. And when we were at the president, I remember him saying, look, yes, I know that there is a clamor for state police, but I've seen, for example, in the last 3 years, state had state electoral commissions that organize local government elections in every state. And the situation we've had so far is that each time there is a local election run by state governments, it's 100% return for the ruling party. And we're worried about that. We want to see whether we will be able to have the majority at that level to ensure that when you have a local police backed by a state electoral commission, everybody, every citizen will feel equal and participate. Don't forget that even in this dispensation, states like Anambra used to have Bakassi boys, an attempt to establish their own state police, and it went very wild. It went very wild to the extent that citizens in those states were afraid as to the use to which they were put. So we're looking at the level of political maturity. We're a young democracy. Just 13 years, we never had the opportunity like this. So we can't rush every reform at the same time. And that is the point we're looking at. So let's study the country carefully as we gain confidence, as citizens gain confidence, as the electoral reforms take root, as we become more, focused as a nation and move forward. And for example, now, if you look at the security challenges we have, if you have state police in some places, you will be shocked maybe what the situation might be, depending on which faction of that state is controlling the police. And if you have a situation in which there are people who are aggrieved and are fighting that state government, to what use will it be deployed? So we should not just think that every reform will come at the same time. I think that we should look at this thing more with sobriety and looking at the state of the nation at the moment. Nobody is opposed to it in principle, but we're looking at the level of political maturity and the situation we have on the ground.
Honorable Minister, you are a very smooth talker. It's professional to the core.